Hey Maniacs! From the view of this here camera, it looks like my room is in order, but in fact it's not. It's not at all. It's a disaster. On this installment of Practical Cosplay, if you haven't guessed already, we're going to be talking about transportation to and from conventions and hotel life once you're there. And just as a disclaimer, at the time of the making of this video, I have never taken a plane to a convention. 'Cause money, LOL guys! But I have been taking planes to places since I was 9, and I know a lot about traveling on them and transporting my luggage in them. So I will give a few plane tips, but just know that I have never taken a plane to a con specifically. With that in mind, let's move on to some transportation tips. So I share the opinion with many other cosplayers that driving is the easiest way to get to a con. This is really just because it is the safest and easiest way to get to a con, unless you're like legitimately walking down the street from your house to the convention center. So because of this shared opinion, I'm going to start off with some driving to convention tips. Driving tip number 1, carpool. It's pretty simple. Just cram you, your friends, and all of your costumes into one vehicle to cut down on expense. And it'll just make the trip more fun. Or bearable, if you have that outlook. And you know what? If you do, bring your DS. So just bring that DS. Driving tip number 2. Play car Tetris ahead of time. Knowing how big your vehicle is and how much space you have for both costumes and people ahead of time is really key. No one wants to leave, for example, a prop that you spent months working on so hard. No one wants to leave that behind the day of the con because they just can't fit it in the car the day of the con. So, if you can, try and designate a specific amount of space to each person and their costumes. And if you're super prepared, try and play car Tetris ahead of time as like a practice run. Going off of driving tip number 2, we have driving tip number 3. Make sure that everything you have is collapsible and or compact. When you're packing props and you're storing makeup, it's always better to make sure that everything is compact. Stacking bins, airtight bags, and collapsible props are always the best way to go in this case. And can I just say that collapsible wig stands are the best thing since sliced bread. And that leads us to driving tip number 4. Bag everything in like so many bags. Especially with things like makeup. There are 100 different ways that not bagging things could go wrong. Not bagging things could result in wrecking a heavily styled wig, or scratching the paint off of an important prop, or just spilling your makeup everywhere, and no one wants that. So just bag everything to be extra safe. And also, just real quick, garment bags are your friends. They were made for a reason, and that is to protect your sewing. Yeah. So, now that driving is over with, we're going to move on to some general plane tips. Plane tip number 1. Use clear bags. Because you know what? Airport security is a thing, and they will go through all of your stuff. Especially suspicious looking stuff, like strange props that you have for your weird cosplay made out of strange materials because you're trying to be cheap. So, if you use clear bags within your suitcase and other luggage, security can know what they're looking at a lot faster, and they won't rifle through every little thing, potentially damaging all of your hard work. Plane tip number 2. Minimize your baggage, but do not ever forget about weight limits. I am looking at you, oversized prop specializing cosplayers. You do not want to be standing in the middle of the airport the day of the con, dropping so much money to transport your oversized prop when you're already way too tired for this, just because you didn't remember a weight limit. So don't forget. And speaking of props, plane tip number 3. Decide whether you are shipping or checking your props way ahead of time. So it's very popular for cosplayers to ship large pieces of their costumes to conventions instead of dealing with them through checking. This is all well and good, but if you do this, make sure you decide whether you are shipping or checking your luggage way ahead of time so that you can calculate the amount of time it will take to ship, and therefore you will know when you need to send it off. Basically just have a plan so your stuff will arrive on time. Now we're gonna move on to some hotel life tips because, let's face it, getting to the con and the hotel is only half the battle. And there's really no better way to say this, so hotel tip number 1, don't trust your hotel, especially the hotel tools. Bring things like your own iron and hair dryer, cause hotels can sometimes have faulty or just plain gross items. Power strips are also a great thing to invest in because if you are cramming a lot of people into a small space, there are only so many power outlets and there are a lot of smartphones to charge. Hotel tip 2. Set some ground rules with your roommates. It's annoying to say because usually when you book a hotel for a con, you're going to be rooming with your really close friends. But you don't want to be ruining your entire convention experience due to one misunderstanding with the roommate. It's just not fun. So set some basic rules. Establish who is sleeping where. Establish who gets what space to put all their stuff in. Just do the general things that will make everybody comfortable and won't accidentally change that. Alrighty, and to finish this vlog up, I have a few miscellaneous tips that kind of really don't fit in the categories or overlap in them or whatever. Miscellaneous tip number 1. Schedule your transport and your con activities around hotel check-in and check-out times. You know, I think that this goes without saying, but for those of you who are booking a hotel, maybe for the first time, this is one that you just kind of need to hear. Being in limbo waiting for a ride or a plane when the con ended 8 hours ago, and more than anything in the world, you just want to sleep on your own bed, is really not fun. So just make sure you're planning everything around your hotel check-in and check-out times. Miscellaneous tip number 2. If you are like me and wear multiple costumes per day, make sure that you're thinking about where you're changing during the day. Because if your hotel is really far away from the convention center, maybe you don't want to be going back and forth between the hotel and the convention center just to change costumes. Maybe instead of bringing that giant, crazy, specialized costume that you're going to change into in the middle of the day, maybe you just want to bring a small one that you can fit in your day bag and change into in a bathroom stall. Basically, just have a plan when it comes to changing costumes because really, you don't want to be upset about how many costumes you bring. You want to have fun in all of them. So I think that about wraps it up for this video. If you like this video and want to see more, like and subscribe, obs. There are definitely more videos in this series to come, and hopefully I will be making more of them very soon. I guess that hopefully now you know how to transport yourself and your stuff to conventions easier. I will see you on the con floor. I hate this line. Help me. Help, I'm spinning around in this circle now.